Hi guys, welcome again to another session of Applying the Kingdom. And as you know, my name is Kevin and I'm here as a teacher trying to go through a lot of the seminars, a lot of the messages Dr. Miles preached, but more importantly, going through to find out what is it that Jesus really wants to tell us. Because as I mentioned before, what Dr. Maz was trying to convey is the mindset of Jesus Christ, the ideas of Jesus Christ's opinions about God, about life, about things. And he was trying to do that to bring the church back into alignment with the founder, Jesus Christ, who is King, originally intended. Because there is this um, recognition that the general church community have not been able to keep in line with Jesus's mandate, Jesus's design, and because the whole message was hijacked, was misinterpreted, and they got influenced and distracted. Church. So we know that Jesus Christ is the one who's building his church. He said, "I will build my church." And of course, some of the foundational um, understanding of that statement is that the word church in the English is not even the correct translation of the original word ecclesia. And the fact that Jesus said, "I will build mine," means that there are others. So when we say church or we say ecclesia, Jesus is not the only one who have an ecclesia, but he will build his. All right. What you want to do is to make sure we understand what Jesus Christ is building and make sure we are in alignment, we are in his ecclesia and not in someone else's ecclesia, right? Or church as we call it. All right. Because there are many others. And I know from time to time, different people complain. What are they doing? They complain about different denominations or different assemblies doing things, different pastors doing things, and they are angry at them and they are complaining. Why are they doing that? Oh, why are they doing that to the church? And the church is not like that. And I ask myself, well, which church? Which church are you talking about? Because as far as Jesus is concerned, he's okay. His church is growing. In other words, he has people all over the place growing, developing, following his mandate. What we want to make sure is that we are also part of that, right? But the other people growing their ecclesia, their church, their assembly, under their own name and their own mindset, their own thinking, their own interpretation of God. Right? Their people are doing that. And we have to understand that hey, don't fight about it, don't fuss about it. Keep in alignment with what the king wants you to do. That's what's important. Forget about all of that. I remember one time the disciples were complaining about the religious leaders and so forth. And Jesus said, don't bother with them, man. They're blind guides. In other words, they even take them on. They're blind. Don't bother with them. You just do what you're supposed to be doing, right? And we need to approach this study like that. That hey, many people have their own understanding and interpretation of what Jesus says, of what Jesus means, what Jesus wants to do. What we want to do is to make sure that we are in line with what he's doing. Somebody could come and say, well, as far as I know, Jesus wants me to do this, something specific, and it's possible Jesus wants that person to do it. Maybe Jesus conveyed it to them because he's still communicating with us, he's still guiding us to build, to expand. But when we look at what they're doing, it might be contrary to how Jesus thinks. Or they might take a passage or statement and focus on that statement so much that it becomes the be all and the end all. And they don't take into consideration the context. So sometimes that happens. And we just have to pray for each other that we understand, or that each of us understand what the king wants us to do and we are doing it. All right. We are still trying to get over stuff. We are still battling with stuff. As even Dr. Mary said, still battling with stuff, still fighting the thousands of years of misleading and misinformation and misunderstanding. We are still struggling to try to catch up. Yes, the Holy Spirit is speaking, is trying to communicate with us, but trying to get it through to the point where we understand it and we can apply it. That is work. The Holy Spirit have a lot of work. I mean, we're thankful for the patience of the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God is very patient with us because we are hard-headed. We have really been messed up. All right? And I'm saying me, including myself, we have been messed up so much. We need help. Um, so in connection with that, last week we spoke about what does Jesus believe about you. Okay, so we were talking about what does Jesus believes. And we try to get some statements that Jesus made, but not only statement, look at the context and even the precepts, which we haven't done that yet, but that is something we'll do later on, the precept, because the precept is even more important than the context or the concept, all right? And one of the other foundational things we need to be aware of is the material that we are reading that's talking about what Jesus is saying was written originally in a different language than what we are reading. And that language cannot be properly interpreted word for word and get the right meaning. Because that language, which is Hebrew and of course Aramaic and so forth, Aramaic and Greek, the challenge with those languages is that the concept is more important than the word. So you might interpret a word that means something in English when you look at the definition of the words, and you could try to read it like that. And I think the Amplified Bible tried to do that, but we have to be very careful because remember, they interpreted based upon the words that they've defined, right? Not the concepts. And they could actually be giving us the wrong concept, even in the Amplified Bible. Because there are times when I read some words and in the explanation they give in the context of Christianity or the context of religion. But when you understand Jesus' mindset, his mindset was not Christianity. His mindset was never religious. And you're seeing that sometimes in the Amplified Bible. So we have to be so careful that we understand Jesus' original intent, original plan, where he's going, his vision, his processes, his program, his goals, what he's planning. We really need to be careful because we could be misled even from looking at the Amplified Bible. Right? And that's something I realized that a lot of people are not aware of these things because they're not aware of the language barrier of trying to read something in English. We have our own mindset, and then we are reading what somebody in our mindset told us it's supposed to mean, without going back to find out what did the original author mean. That is so crucial, right? Even though he used those words, what did he mean, right? So it's very, very careful. So we'll when we go through these studies, we're going to do things like that. We're not just going to interpret the words in English or in Greek or in Hebrew. We're going to try to find out what is the concept that is being conveyed. And then later on, as I say, another session we'll do it sometime, we'll go down. What is the precept? Why this concept? Why this idea at that time in that situation? Right? So that we can get a proper application of what is being said and what is being taught. As we said, this is applying the kingdom. And the reason we want to apply the kingdom is because the world is looking for answers. The world is looking for a lot of answers to a lot of problems. And when I say world, I mean the people of the world personally, and also organizations are looking for help. Governments and nations are looking for help. And they're trying to figure out how to fix the problems, which we have caused, not realizing the solutions are not in the systems that we have created. We have to find a different system. We have to find a different government to bring the solutions to us. And of course, sometimes when you are in organizations and you have disasters, and some people start with prayer, the world might say, "Oh, look at them again, pray." Is that all you can think about? But not realizing, both sides sometimes don't realize the power of prayer. The world doesn't realize, but then sometimes we become so spiritual, we don't understand that prayer needs to be backed up by work. Right? Why wisdom at work, right? Wise work. It needs to be backed up by that. So we could really pray too much, okay, without actually applying the work that needs to be now followed up by the prayer. So both of us could be at loggerheads sometimes in solving problems. The world and we in the church could be at loggerheads trying to solve problems. All right. So we're just looking today, as we say, at what does Jesus believe about the problems on the earth? And I want to look at this as heavenly solutions for earthly problems. For example, when we have things like crime in a neighborhood, what is needed? What is the solution to crime? What a lot of people don't realize that crime is not a problem really. Crime is a symptom, is a result of something else. It's like coughing or having a runny nose or sneezing. Sneezing is not the problem. The cause is something else besides the sneezing. Something is affecting your body to cause you to run, your nose to run, or cause you to cough in your throat, or cause you to sneeze. And we have to go look at the cause, right? And what we don't realize is that the cause sometimes is not directly related. Sometimes it's indirectly related, or in another word, sometimes in our coaching programs, there's this word that has been thrown around for some decades now called intuitive, counterintuitive. It's not the normal thing you will think about doing, but it works, right? It's not the path you will think about going, but you realize the opposite path really solves the problem. Opposite direction solves the problem. So that's one of the challenges, that the crime is not the problem. Crime is a symptom, is a result of something else. All right. And it has to, of course, things like character building is a solution to crime. Right. Present fathers is a solution to crime, which has been proven. Right. Present fathers. Now, how come no government fighting to keep fathers in the homes? Fighting, putting resources behind fathers, because it's not the thing that they will normally think is the solution. They think, because we normally think that the problem is the men. They are the problem, and therefore let's ignore them. Let's find a different way. But they are the problem, but they're also the solution. That's the thing, all right? And so they're partially right. The men are what's causing crime. Most men are what's causing crime. But then, to solve the problem that causes crime, which is character issues, you have to find men to do it. Yeah, yeah. You had to get men to exemplify the right character among other men. In other words, you need senior men to build younger men. Senior men to bring up younger men. That's what you need. Father figures. That's the solution. Once you have father figures around young men, crime reduces. It's counterintuitive, but that's the solution. Because the problem is not people going out and commit a crime. The problem is there is no character base built into the young person, into the person. Person doesn't have it. You could talk it. You could tell them things. That has nothing to do with it. It's not a lack of knowledge, not a lack of information. It's a lack of character. It's not a lack of creativity, because they find creative ways to commit crime, invent ways to commit crime. You know, as Psalms 1 talk about, invent ways to commit evil. But the same intuitive and creative aptitude they have can be used if the character is built. It can be used now to build peace instead of crime. Right? So that's just looking at one way. What's another problem? Big problem. School dropout is a big issue for a lot of communities. A lot of governments are suffering that. School dropouts, especially for young men, of course, but school dropout is a big thing. And what you don't realize is that the school dropout, what they try to do is try to force children to stay in school instead of incentivize them to want to go to school. You understand? Try to pong it into them, right? And not realizing that trying to force them, you're actually making things worse. because they don't know how to incentivize, how to influence, or how to inspire them to want to learn. They don't know how to do it. Okay. One teacher said one time, a good teacher simplifies the complicated. A foolish teacher complicates the simple. So there are very simple things in schoolwork that the governments have complicated, which have turned people off from school. And they haven't connected school or learning, which is what you're supposed to be working on, learning as being something that's exciting and fun. Now, the few schools or few organizations or few countries that have been able to do it see the difference, total difference. And some countries believe they can't adopt it. That's because they don't know how to. All right? But it can be learned, it can be learned, it can be taught. All right? It's a shout out to the Ron Clark Academy. Big, wonderful academy. Right? Great organization that does training. All right. So there is a different thing. What is another big thing? Problems of the world. Poverty. Right? Poverty is the answer to poverty is not giving people more money. Right? People think, okay, because I'm poor, I need more money. I need more grants. I need more handouts. I need more what these things that they do, halfway houses, soup kitchens. Not really. What you need more mental transformation, mind transplant. Right? As a matter of fact, you need someone to inspire or to bring a revelation of something that the person wasn't aware of. A good example is when Jesus spoke in Luke chapter 4. When he went into the temple and he read from Isaiah, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring, and if you really look at the list, there's a list of things for a problem. So he's bringing some things for different problems. So the first one was good news to the poor. Now, why not money to the poor? Because if you go on, he said, sight to the blind, comfort or bind up the brokenhearted, because that's kind of logical, right? Brokenhearted needs comfort or to be bind up, to be healed. Sight, blind people need sight, right? Okay. People who are oppressed need to be relieved. People who are trapped or enslaved need to be liberated. Liberty. I mean, that's kind of obvious. But when it comes to the poor, he said, good news. To proclaim the good news of the kingdom to the poor. Wow. Now, why would the poor people, they don't have money to pay bills, they can't, they may be unemployed, they can't meet their basic cost of living, need good news. Right? You understand? Sometimes it's counterintuitive. It's not directly related. Right? Because you see, the good news is to make them aware of what they could have access to. Right? That's the wonderful thing about it. Good news. So sometimes these are things that we don't see, that we need to learn, because they've been hidden from us. And Jesus rejoiced after the disciples came back, and was rejoicing because the demons were subject to them, which is something supposed to be normal for us, right? The demons subject to us. And he tell them, well, of course, the whole story of when he told them, well, don't rejoice in that, rejoice in the fact that your name is registered. That's like a registration, like your citizen. Rejoice about that, because once that is so, as a citizen, you have access to everything, right? Including the power to command demons. And that's only one part of it, because it's so much more because you're a citizen. But he went on to say that, the passage went on to say, he rejoiced, Jesus rejoiced, meaning, but the word used